My guest this morning actually is someone I've known since my high school days, and she has gone on to get her doctorate. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about her. But the reason that I reached out to her for this morning's interview is because Paterson celebrated a principal who is world-renowned because of how he went in and had efforts to transform a school. And that school was Eastside High School in Paterson, New Jersey. And my guest this morning was one of the students there that actually was going to school there, and he was her principal. And she actually became almost like a daughter figure to him, and he a father figure to her. And we were just chatting, and she wasn't the only one. It was that's what the whole thing was about. And, the movie was Lean on Me. And so we celebrated that this week, and I wanted to continue it. And that's why I got in touch with Pinky, Dr. Pinky Miller. And so I'm going to get her introduced, and then we're going to go on with our interview. So my guest this morning is Dr. Pinky Miller, a native of Paterson, New Jersey. She was educated through the public school system, attending public school number 24 and the famed Paterson Eastside High School. Eastside was depicted in the 1989 movie Lean on Me, in which Morgan Freeman portrayed the controversial principal, Mr. Joe Clark. Dr. Miller received her Bachelor of Arts degree in Communication Studies and her Master of Arts degree in Counseling and School Guidance from Montclair State University. And in 2011, she received her Doctor of Philosophy degree from Georgia State University. Dr. Pinky Miller is an actor, author, and motivational speaker. In her authentic and enlightening book series, Life After Lean on Me, she shares her life experiences and research by articulating the impact, good, bad, and indifferent, that Dr. Joe Clark made upon the students, teachers, and administration during his tenure at Eastside High School. She is also the executive producer of the forthcoming documentary Know Our Story, which chronicles the successes and failures of Dr. Joe Clark's kids, the real-life legacy of the bullhorn and the baseball bat. Dr. Miller has over 18 years of experience working in higher education and has held positions as hall director, academic advisor, area coordinator, assistant director of resident life and housing, assistant dean of students, and vice president of student affairs. Dr. Miller loves working with college students, assisting them in times of crisis, and helping guide them toward becoming successful citizens. She has been recognized for organizing and motivating people to achieve their goals. Dr. Miller is a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and Dr. Miller currently serves as a special education teacher in DeKalb County, Georgia, and she loves children. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, Dr. Pinky Miller. Dr. Miller, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Now, see,
I love it.
This is the interesting thing because, see, like I said, we were in high school together. Pinky was a couple of years behind me. I graduated in 1980, and Pinky, you were in what, 85 or 86 or?
86, baby.
86. There you go. So I was actually working there when Pinky was a student there. That's what it was. And I remember her as Pinky. I remember her as Pinky. And Pinky went on, as you just heard in that bio, Pinky has gone all the way and gotten her doctorate, and she is Dr. Pinky Miller. Now, see, this is the thing, Dr. Miller, and you know as well as I do, especially how people have these perceptions that nothing good comes out of Paterson, that anything black coming up out of the city of Paterson, which in many instances is seen as Sodom and Gomorrah, clearly nothing good can come out of that. And yet, here we have a Dr. Pinky Miller who went to what was considered one of the worst high schools in the country, hence the whole saga with Joe Clark and Lean on Me.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Talk to me about your experiences and talk to me how, because the reason I wanted to have you on, because like I said, 35 years. Can you believe that movie was done 35 years ago?
I know. And we lived it. So, yes.
It's interesting you said it because I was talking to my sister last night. She said those same words that you just said. Like for many, it's history, but we were a part of that history. We lived it is right.
Right. And people don't realize it until, I even think, and just currently people who live in poverty and live in, different situations, they don't know that they're poor. You know what I mean? They don't know it. That's all they know. And so attending Eastside High School was amazing. And for me, back in 1982, when I graduated from, PS 24, I was scared to go to high school. I was terrified to go to high school because, as you know, as Paterson was back then, there was only two high schools that you could really attend, and it depended if you lived. It depended upon where you lived. So if you lived on the east side, you went to east side, and if you lived out on that other side, you went to that other high school called Kennedy. And we were rivals, but it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. The thing of it is that, like I said, I was a scared little freshman. I didn't want to go to Eastside because that year, right before we were to attend Eastside High School, a teacher got stabbed by a student. And I don't know if you remember it, but I remember it because I was scared. I was like, Mommy, I don't want to go to that high school, because there were so many bad things happening at the school prior to Mr. Clark. And I know this to be true because my siblings attended Eastside High School. So there were a lot of fights. There were a lot of things happening. And it was a lot of violence. It was just really scary. But again, you don't realize what you're going through because it's your lived experience. So you're living through it. You don't realize that when you go to school, when you go to school and you go to lunch, that you're scared to go to lunch because there's food fights and the food, it was just crazy. Fights everywhere. And for me, I did not want to attend, and so I was a scared little girl. But God, I prayed, and I'm like,
I know that's right.
It's going to happen because I have to go to Eastside. And the other thing is they were in the process of building Arts High, and it wasn't ready yet for us to attend because I got accepted to Arts High. And, but ended up going to Eastside, and it turned out to be the best thing ever because the first day of school, I was scared. Me and my girlfriend, we went to school. We're walking down the street, going up to Eastside, and as we're walking, you could see crack vials and all kinds of, negative things that were going on in our city. But when we walked into the building, we were afraid because we walked in, and as freshmen, we're coming into this monstrosity of a building, and you're this person, you're walking through the building, and then all of a sudden you hear this loud voice, walk to the right, walk to the right. We're like, what in the world? What do you mean walk to the right? First of all, we're scared. We don't know where we're going. We're just like, little sheep just trying to navigate our way through. And it was Mr. Clark's voice. And we didn't know he was on the intercom. All we heard was shoes walking and this loud voice. We didn't know where to go. And as we stopped to try to even ask him where to go, he's like, walk to the right. He was yelling at us. Like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. What is going on? And then it was just amazing. And then we kind of they herded us into the auditorium. And as we're sitting there, and this man who was tall and well-dressed, and he got on the stage, and he just started talking to us, although he was really yelling. At least to me, he was yelling. It's our first day of school, and we're like, oh, my God, what did we get ourselves into? But it was amazing because he just shared with us that the old Eastside High School is gone, and then he started to lay down the law, which is the title of one of his books, Laying Down the Law. And he laid down the law. It gave us the rules and the tools. Like, if you do this, you're getting suspended. If you do that, you're getting suspended. And then he had the nerve to tell us that if we ever needed anything, that we can come and talk to him at 6 o'clock in the morning.
That's correct.
Or right after school. And when I tell you, wait a minute. So me as a student can come and talk to you that early in the morning, he said, about anything. And, Eastside High School became a safe haven for me because a lot of things that were happening in my home weren't so safe. And I'll put it that way. And so I loved school. And I met Mr. Clark, and, he took a liking to me as well as many of the other students. So I'm not special, although I think I'm special, but I'm not special because what he did for me, he did for so many other students. And he just changed Eastside. And not only did he change Eastside, he changed Paterson, New Jersey, because he put those 300-plus students out of Eastside High School, and all they were, okay, so this is the thing. If here I'm going to school, I'm 13 years old, And you have these 18 and 19-year-old, quote-unquote, seniors by
That's
way
right.
of years, but not by way of credit. And so you had some seniors who were there, and they had 15 credits. So if you're a senior and you got 15 credits, what are you doing? What are you doing? Selling drugs or causing chaos in the school? And Mr. Clark put a lot of them out, which in turn allowed those of us who wanted to learn to be able to learn without all of that chaos. So it was just an amazing experience. I have one of the things that even just relating to the movie, because the movie is now 35 years old. And, yes, I can believe it because we talk, the class of 1986, of course, I believe that is the best class because we came in as his brand new freshmen. So Mr. Clark came in as the brand new principal. We were his scared little freshmen. So we went through all of those transformations with him. And so when they did the movie, they took our real life, the life stories of the real students, and put them into the characters of the, Kanisha and Sam's. And just as I was sharing with you a little bit earlier, Mark, is that Kanisha, became pregnant, and the rate of teenage pregnancy was extremely high in Paterson, so much so that they built a high school. They created a school for teenage girls, and that school was called Sage.
That's correct.
And so, yeah. And so even my sister went to Eastside, went to Sage. And so I truly understand and know it for myself, know it to be true. And then the other character was Sam. And during that time, crack cocaine had just hit the scene. And when I tell you it hit Paterson extremely bad. So you had a lot of parents that were strung out on crack, and then you had a lot of high school students strung out on crack cocaine, and or if they weren't strung out on it, they were selling it. It just hit Paterson, New Jersey really bad. It's so close to New York City. And so, that's how they came up with the characters, and they took, again, our life stories. So it wasn't, a lot of people think I'm Kanisha, especially because we look alike, and it's not really Kanisha.
Right.
Well, Kanisha, but Karen White, who I give props to because they did, Karen White and Jerome Sams, they did an excellent job of portraying, who we are as, portraying our life stories. So yeah, I loved Eastside. Loved Mr. Clark. He was an awesome man, and not only as the principal, he was like your father. And so if you were cutting up, you best believe he would chastise you right in front of everybody. Like, go get your hair done. You got on wrinkled clothes. Go get. He just was like he was no joke. But at the end of the day, one of the things that I know for sure is that if I had a problem, he was there for me as early as 6 o'clock in the morning and as late as almost 6 at night, because he was always at Eastside, always there.
That's correct.
And I had some problems and some issues as a young girl growing up in poverty-stricken Paterson, New Jersey, and he was a father figure to me, but not just to me, to many of the students. He would take $5 out of his pocket and give it to you if you didn't have money. And one of the things that I did, thank God, is that going on to receive my PhD was not easy at all. Because, although the test scores went up and things of that nature, we were still at a deficit.
Correct.
Because, in order to compete with those, the majority of the students who were attending college.
Correct.
I went to Montclair State University. I had to take some remedial classes. And
Absolutely
came from
right.
Eastside High School. Absolutely. So it wasn't easy. It was not easy at all. But the thing of it is, one of the things that Mr. Clark told us was that your education is your home run out of the ghetto.
Absolutely.
Get as much as you can. And I believed him. And so that's why I went on to get my PhD. No, it was not easy, not at all. But at the same time, I can always hear, whenever I'm faced with a challenge, even to this day, at the beautiful age of 50 plus 5, and my birthday is on the 8th, And for those who know me, I will always be 50 years old.
I
From now to the sky. So when someone says, "How old are you?" I say, "I'm 50 plus 5." And so this coming Friday, it'll be 50 plus 6.
Well, I tell you what, happy birthday to you in advance. And as you were describing those first days, now, like I said, when Pinky was there, I was working there. I actually worked there until 1985. And Pinky was one of the kids there. And I'm sitting here listening to you describe that because Joe Clark had a bullhorn. That's what he had a bullhorn that he would use. And as he walked through the halls, just as Pinky is describing, he would walk through the hall. And that's exactly what he was saying. Step to the right, step to the right, step to the right, because he was a former Marine. So a lot of what Joe Clark did was very military-like. He wanted order and he wanted structure and he was very tough exterior. But at the same time, exactly what you're hearing Pinky say is, the interior, because she's right. His thing was he would be there at 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, school didn't start till 8. But he would get there at 6. Now, the expectation of him was because he did not accept excuses for being late. And I even share this with my teachers now because I'm constantly struggling with my teachers in terms of getting there on time. And I would tell them the Joe Clark story. I asked him one time, Mr. Clark, why you get here so early? He said, because that way I don't know what's going to happen between me leaving home and me getting to the school. So I try to give enough time that if anything happened, I'm still going to be on time. And most of the time, by the time he left at 5 or 5:30 in the morning to get to the school by 6, there was no traffic or nothing going on. So 6 o'clock in the morning, he was pulling in.
Right.
And just like Pinky said, he didn't leave till 6 or 6:30 or 7 o'clock during that night. And again, I love the way you put in there the good, bad, the indifferent, because depending on who you were, you could have any one of those experiences with him. Because on the staff, on the teachers, he was brutal.
Yeah, let me tell you what he did. And okay, so Mr. Clark was definitely student oriented. Like he just loved us as his students, and he loved us as his own. He has children who are awesome, and they are Olympians. They are awesome. Joetta and Hazel Clark, they are Olympians, and they went out to do some phenomenal things. And still are doing phenomenally well.
Correct.
Doing phenomenal things. But he loved us as his students, as I said before. He chastised us as his students. Now, one of the things that he would do is chastise his teachers in front of his students.
Yes, indeed.
And so when I talk about the good, the bad, and indifferent, one of the things, and from the student's perspective, and writing my dissertation, I had to really look at all of the things that he did, because I wrote my dissertation on the strategies that he utilized to get us as his students through and out of Eastside High School. And so and one of the things for my dissertation committee, and I know I'm kind of going off.
No, you're not. It's all germane.
It's all intertwined. And so one of the things that Mr. Clark would do, like I said, he would chastise the students in front of us. And as a student, you're looking at Mr. Clark like, oh man, yeah, he got my back. You know, he can do this. He's not going to put up with this stuff from these teachers. And all we had to do was let Mr. Clark know what was going on.
That's right.
Write a note or stop by his office, and you best believe Mr. Clark was on it and came to
That's right.
to find out what in the world was going on. And so, we had some teachers. There were some staff just like before, prior to Mr. Clark getting there. You had teachers that were there just for a paycheck. They were not there early. They were not there to support the students. And during the school day, they're sitting there reading newspapers. We're not learning anything. We're in there cutting up, and as out here in Georgia, they say cut the monkey. They were in there cutting up. And so, like, again, he would chastise those students, chastise the teachers in front of us. Now, looking at it from an adult and teacher and administrator perspective, that was not a good thing for him to do.
Correct.
And so, Mr. Clark, yes, we understand you're the principal, but you can't come in this classroom and, tear me down and then expect these students to respect me as their teacher, because now there's a disconnect. They're coming and looking at you, and then you don't even really know if that's true. You're just taking the student's word for it. And so, Mr. Clark, he had some flaws, of course, as a man, and that's what he was. And as I was talking about my dissertation committee, I got not in trouble, But I got kind of chastised in a sense because when I was writing about Mr. Clark, I was writing my dissertation in a sense from a student's perspective. And they had to let me know, no, Pinky, Mr. Clark is a man. He's not God. He has flaws. And that's that is what had helped me to open up my dissertation and my research to really start looking at him as Joe Clark the man, Joe Clark the father, Joe Clark the disciplinarian. And as you said, yes, he used his military skill set, which helped us tremendously. But again, him, disrespecting, and that's what he did. He disrespected some teachers. But this is the thing, too. You were either on the Joe Clark train or you were not.
That is correct. And you know what? I'm so glad that, and I want you to keep going.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. And I don't want to interrupt, but I want to make this point because I was there, like you said, we lived it. And when I explained to people exactly how you explained, they look at me like, nah, we know the movie. I said, no, I was there and I know Joe Clark personally. And exactly, I'm so glad to hear somebody else who lived it describe it as it was, because you're absolutely right. A child could write a note or they can go say, Mr. Clark, Mr. Medley did this. He would not even come to me and ask, did you do it? He would just ream me out in front of, like you said, the students. So yeah, keep going. He is a man. That's what, and that people really do need to see. This man was a man. He did some wonderful things. I love the direction he was going in, but there were some things that you just don't do to people. But keep going.
But the thing of it is, and I have to say this, and I'm just going to be just as transparent. And those of you, if it hits you, I don't know. Hey, it does. The thing of it is, though, excuse me, is that Mr. Clark, although he knew a lot of what was going on. And if you remember, Mr. Clark would always say something to the effect of, roosters, leave those chickens alone.
Right.
And a lot of people didn't understand what he meant by that. But I know what he meant by that, because what happened was you had a lot of teachers.
That's right.
Who were dating.
That's right.
And having sex with and impregnating students.
Correct.
And I have a classmate who was a class of 1986. I'm not calling no names, but she has 3 children by one of the teachers at Eastside High School. So, and I believe he's still teaching today. So, it's things like that were happening, and we looked at Mr. Clark as our protector and as our father.
Correct.
And again, when I was saying in the sense that there were some teachers who were on a Mr. Joe Clark train or not. And if you were not, well, if you were, that means you understood what Mr. Clark was really striving to do. He was striving to take these poor Black and Hispanic and white children and striving to make their lives better.
Correct.
To allow them to see something better. Because again, as I said, if you live through it, when you're walking through the streets of Paterson, New Jersey, if you're living there, you don't see the dirt. You don't see the grime. You don't see the crack vials. You don't walk, if you're walking down Broadway and you see these drug addicts who are strung out and that's just normal to you. But from the outside looking in, and if you have not been, had the opportunity to go different places and see different things, when you come back to Paterson, you say, wait a minute, this is not normal.
Right.
This stuff should not be happening.
Right.
These children are growing up in this poverty-stricken area, and it's horrendous. And Mr. Clark allowed us to see a different light, to be able to say, you know what? College is something that you could and should do.
Correct.
And that's why he told us our education was a home run out of the ghetto. And, even now when I go home to Paterson, sometimes, even walking on Broadway, it's still the same. And sadly, sometimes I even see some of my classmates who are still out there strung out on drugs and still doing the same thing. But thank God. Thank God for those of us who were able to get out. And then some of us, thank God, I still have classmates who are on the ground running and working Paterson and doing phenomenal things in Paterson. The Paterson City Council, I'm going to give props to the mayor and as well as to the Paterson City Council who have, helped me get some things done in Paterson. being able to support the students at Eastside High School and give away scholarship dollars and, allowing them to see that there are other things that you can do. And then looking at my life, if I can come from Paterson, New Jersey and do some phenomenal things, I thank God and thank my family and I thank my mother, because my mother raised 6, 7 kids in Paterson, New Jersey by herself, had to work 2 full-time jobs. So that's why things happened to me, because my mother was always at work.
Correct.
And you know what I mean? And she had to work in order to raise her children. And so we have a lot of beautiful people that are working and doing the thing in Paterson, because you know what? They love the people that live in Paterson and they care about each other. And it's just, Mr. Clark set the tone. He allowed us to see different things. We went on different field trips. And one of the other great things is that he changed the interior of Eastside. He tried to change the exterior as well, because Eastside looked like a big prison. It looked like a big prison from the outside looking in. And, you had all the graffiti around all over the school. And Mr. Clark, during that time, he told the students, because, a lot of the students were tagging and doing all types of graffiti. He called all of them in, into a meeting, and he, shared with them. He said, now, I know you have this talent. He said, but I want you to take that graffiti, take that artistic talent, and turn it into good. I want you to create murals, beautiful murals here at Eastside High School. And when I tell you, excuse me, as he cleaned up the school, you began to see beautiful murals on the walls. It just really improved our the way that we felt about Eastside High School. We had pride in Eastside High School. It was just an amazing journey. And through all of those things, he allowed us to see things that could be better. He gave us some insight of what our future could look like. He was just an awesome man, and I thank God for him. One of the other things is that Mr. Clark knew, and of course, because he lived in Newark, he knew, he could see, the violence and things of that nature. And it got so bad to the point where sometimes, because of Paterson being Paterson, you have your African Americans, and then you have your Latinos, and then you got the Jamaicans, and then you had the Dominicans and the Puerto Ricans. And one of the things that was happening is that if there was an argument or a problem with students inside the school, it would spill out into the community. And so you would have these little race riots that would be going on. You got the Puerto Ricans against Dominicans or against the blacks, and you got students just fighting and doing all kinds of things. And Eastside was that one thing, that one place where we all had to come together. And Mr. Clark, he just helped us, to navigate through that issue. The other thing that Mr. Clark did was he helped us instill pride in ourselves, and that's how the alma mater got changed. And I remember that because I was, and I'm not going to call names, as far as the former music teacher who was a phenomenal music teacher.
Oh, she was mine. So she was one of the best in the state.
One of the best.
Yes.
I mean, we were singing all kinds of...
all genres, opera, jazz, you name it. Yes.
Yes. And I'm going to call her name
Miss Kubian. Yes, Fran Kubian. Absolutely.
Phenomenal. But however, Mr. Clark is like looking at it like, girl, a woman, we...
Right.
They're in poverty-stricken Paterson, New Jersey. We need just something a little bit different. And when Miss Ray got a hold of that alma mater, oh, my God.
Correct.
She did a phenomenal job, and that's how, we instilled pride in Eastside High School. And for those of you who don't know, you all sing our alma mater, and it's just a song to you. But to the students, it was our way of connecting, because Mr. Clark made us sing that song, sing our alma
That's
mater
right.
at every event. When I say win or lose, at all of the sports games, we had to sing our alma mater. And win or lose, like I said. And then the other thing is, not only did we have to sing it in English, we also had to sing it in Spanish.
Wow.
And so the other great thing about it, too, is that that song, whenever we have our reunions, that song is sung. And when we're singing that song, for us, it takes us back to being at Eastside High School. It takes us back to the experiences, the great experiences that we had. And we can sing that song and the tears will start to roll down faces because it takes us back to the love that Mr. Clark shared. And not only did, he taught us about God, Mr. Clark taught us about education, and he taught us about love and how to be there for one another and be friends and just be a family. So, for some people, they look at the movie and it's like, oh, no. For us, it's our lived experiences. And when people say, well, did everything in the movie, was it true? Was it true? Honestly, for me, Eastside was worse than what they portrayed in the movie. And that, for me, it goes back to you're living the experience. So you don't know that people fighting every day, or if you go to school with new shoes or new, coat, and you had to walk home without shoes and without that coat because somebody, took your coat, or, your necklace, or, students would get, robbed, and, it was just, and people would think that that's okay. Not that it's okay, but it's the norm. And whereas in real life, that's not the norm. So some people say, oh, it wasn't that bad. Yes, it was. And, you had adults at that time. And here I am. I'm the student. So I'm looking at it from the student perspective. I should not have to go to my Spanish class, right? And so just as an example, here it is. I'm a freshman, and I'm going to school. And this was before Mr. Clark kicked everybody out. And so this is my freshman year. I'm in my Spanish class, and I love Spanish. I was trying to learn another language. And you had these seniors who were also in the class. Now, I'm in freshman Spanish. Why do I have seniors in my class? Think about that.
That's right.
Think about it. And we had to take 2 languages. So why, at any rate, so let me move on. So, and I was in Miss Medley's classroom. So one of the students, what they would do is, and the books, because they had closets in the classroom, and the books were in the closet. And so one of the students, they would say, oh, Miss Medley, I don't have my book. And so Miss Medley she went into the closet to go get the books, and guess what? They locked her in the closet. So now, here it is, you got these students, they're just running amok. They done locked the teacher in the classroom, and I'm sitting there like, what in the ham sandwich is going on right now? I'm here trying to learn Spanish. I can't learn Spanish because my teacher's locked in the closet, and these big kids, here I am again, little freshman, these big kids are laughing and doing what they're doing. How am I supposed to learn? So, and that's not fair to the students that wanted to learn. So again, you got all kinds of things that are happening. You got teenage pregnancy, you got crack cocaine, you got students being robbed, you got all kinds of violent things that are happening. Teachers teacher got stabbed. It was crazy. It was a crazy time. And again, if you're living through it, you don't think it's that bad. But from the outside looking in, a lot of bad things were happening, and I'm glad and thankful that Mr. Clark came. It matters that he was born because he made an impact not only on my life, but going back to my dissertation, I interviewed for my qualitative dissertation students who were there prior to Mr. Clark, during Mr. Clark, and after Mr. Clark. But I didn't just stop at the students. I then also interviewed teachers and administrators that were prior, there, and during and after. And when I tell you the stories that I was told, and even like with Mr. Brown during that time, who was like Mr. Clark's security guard.
Correct.
We had teachers that wanted to beat Mr. Clark up because he was so disrespectful.
Correct. That is right.
Oh my God.
I was just talking about that yesterday. It was Steve Brown and Dominic Pelosi. Those two, they kept him. They always was around him.
Man, and Mr. Steve Brown, he used to play for the Giants, so he's a big football.
Right.
Muscles. And when I tell you, when Mr. Clark said, "Get this teacher out of my school," Mr. Brown told me a story that he would go right to that teacher, right to that class, help that teacher pack up their stuff, and when I tell you, push them and kick them out the school, that was what they did. That is what he did. And, when people wanted to come at Mr. Clark, they had to go through Mr. Brown first.
That is correct.
And you didn't want to mess with Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown would jack you up.
That is correct. Now, see, like I said, I'm appreciating this interview so much because you are calling it like it was. You are keeping it real.
Sir.
And I was there, and I'm a witness, and I can attest to everything you are saying as true because I experienced it there myself and saw it.
Yep.
But a lot of people are not willing to call it as it was. And that's why I appreciate what you're doing here, because I'm sitting here laughing as you're saying it, because I was sharing with someone yesterday various scenes and who it was, because I knew who the teachers that they were portraying.
Exactly.
And
I know too.
I just said yesterday, I said it was Steve Brown and Dominic Pelosi. He kept one on the left, one on the right. They were like his bodyguards.
Yep.
But you're right in terms of things that were normalized, because this is what I said. His spirit of where he was trying to go, I was always with. There were some things, especially the demeaning of the staff, that I just couldn't get with. But like the whole thing with the locking of the door, and I understand fire code, I get it. But I tell people all the time, Eastside, as you know, has hundreds of doors. And
38 doors to be exact. And let me tell you a story about that. So when I interviewed Mr. Clark, because not only did I interview students and teachers, I also interviewed Mr. Clark. So Mr. Clark's voice is in my dissertation. So it's in my book. So my dissertation is very objective and very well-rounded because you have all of the voices that are being heard. And so one of the things that Mr. Clark did was, if you remember, everybody, the teachers had to stand in the hallway.
Correct.
And they were like the line down the middle down the corridors, and with the teachers in the hallway, the students had to walk to the right because Eastside High School is so big that there was just chaos during, whenever there was a change in
the hallway. That's correct.
In the hallway, and that's where all of the fights started. So if you see somebody, and even in the beginning of the movie, and how it's portrayed in the movie, you see all this fighting happening in the foyer, and that is true. And the fights would happen right by the auditorium. That beautiful, beautiful auditorium, and people would just be fighting, students fighting there all the time. So that was one of his strategies. Mr. Clark had so many strategies that helped us. So even just walking to the right, that one strategy right there diminished a lot of the fighting because now you have a herd of students, you got 4,000 students in the school. Everybody's trying to get to where they need to go, and if everybody's walking to the right, then now everybody is, walking together, going in that particular direction. But going back to Mr. Clark and the doors, and so as far as security is concerned, that's why Mr. Clark made the teachers, in effect, the security in the hallways. And he took the security that were supposed to be inside the building and put them on the outside of the building because there are 38 doors, entry doors into Eastside High School. And so he took the teachers and put the security outside, and he had to lock the doors because a lot of the doors were broken. So if you open the door, you could not close the door. And what would happen is that's why that scene when the scene in the movie when the drug dealer came into the cafeteria, and that's when Mr. Clark and them were fighting, had the fight, if you will, because those doors said who opened up the door, because once you open the door, you couldn't lock it back, and so a lot of the drug dealers or people who had didn't have any good intentions for Eastside or the students were able to come into the building, and because, like I said, Eastside High School is a monstrosity of a building. It's beautiful. It's huge. And so that's why he locked the doors to keep the drug pushers and the people who wanted to be violent towards students out.
And I could not agree with him more because I tell people all the time, the chances of a fire breaking out in that building was far less than someone walking in off the street.
Right.
So even if by chance, because I understood the fire code, but even if by chance a fire did break out, you would have somebody that would have gotten to that door with a key quicker than from somebody opening the door, allowing somebody coming off the street. And so I was in total, and again, I worked there as a custodian, so I knew the building very well. I was in total agreement of chaining those doors. And I know he wound up getting in a lot of trouble for that, but I was there with him. And again, the spirit of where he was going, of what he wanted for the students, because you're right, he was very student-centered. was spot on. I laugh because over the years, because I'm the principal, I've been principal now since 2005. Over the years, I've been compared to him, and I'll say, oh, absolutely not. But then there are other times it's kind of like that good, bad, indifferent thing kicks in. Because I just had one of my teachers went to see the film Thursday night. And so Friday morning when I was having, she says, oh my God, he reminded me of you. He said he was telling the kids about not going to jail and not disseminating the same things that you're saying to these kids. So you know the picture of whenever the movie came out, the poster of the silhouettes of Mr. Clark. He's pointing down to a student. He's bent over pointer. So when the kids, whenever I passed it out, when I was letting them know about the movie, they said, "Is that you?" I was like, no, that's not. That looks like you in there. And so I laughed. I just laughed. I said, no, it's not me. But I understood what they were saying because I do have the same spirit that he has in terms of what I want for the students. And that is why I expose them to so many people. I constantly have guest speakers before them because I never know who the guest speaker that comes in when a child is going, the light bulb is going to go off and that child is going to say, that's what I want to do for my career. That's who I want to be. That's what I want to be. Like, matter of fact, on Thursday, because we got at my school is right across the street in downtown Paterson from the Fabian Theater in the mall, in the Center City Mall. So the members, some of the remaining members of RIF visited my school during the day Thursday. Michael Best, Stephen Cavers, and Anthony Fuller. And they sang the song. They sang the alma mater. They sang it. And they still, Michael, Stephen, and Anthony, they still, because they were boys in the bathroom.
Right.
In the bathroom scene. They still got their harmony. They sang. The boys got excited, and but we had a really good time with them on Thursday. Michael, Stephen, and Anthony, they came in, they talked to the boys. But again, I never know, because over the years I've had all kinds of career choices in there in front of those boys. And yes, I am the same way with Joe Clark in terms of grooming and clothing, and like we're uniform wearing school, because every morning we have a morning meeting and we go over life lessons. And there are times I will yell. Matter of fact, I almost think some of them like do something for me to yell. They do it on purpose because again, I've become their father figures as well. So that's where I connect with where Mr. Clark was going and did with you all. Because at the end of the day, that's what we were trying to produce. And I saw it in your bio about becoming a successful citizen.
Right. Definitely. Yes, because he wanted to make sure that, especially because of the lack of fathers in the home, and that's one of the things he would always talk about. When the father is not in the home, it's just the students lack discipline. They just do, and especially for these young boys that are growing up, and they don't have a father figure to even emulate, except, unfortunately, the drug dealers that are outside. And that's what, sadly they'll become. And he just didn't want them to do, he wanted to give them options and exposure, just like you said. And that's why when Mr. Clark was there, and because the popularity of Mr. Clark, we had all kinds of celebrities at our school. It seemed like we had a celebrity there at least every other day or at least every week.
That's correct.
And it allowed us to see, Run DMC, Atala Shabazz, Rosa Parks. And it's amazing because, so I did an interview with my school because now I am working as a special education teacher. And a lot of people, when they look at my bio and they see my bio and, all of the things that I did in colleges and universities was amazing. And I still love to work with college students. However, my last role serving as an vice president of student affairs, which is the next role is the president of the college.
Correct.
So to be able to work in that realm was amazing. However, I got to always be obedient to what God tells me.
That's right.
And one of the things that God said to me during that time is, I want you to work with the kids. I want you to work with the babies. And I'm like, what? Oh, okay. And one of the things that I had to really understand is that when things happened to me as a little girl, and being fully transparent, being abused, being molested, and sometimes some physical abuse too, things happened to me when I was in elementary school. And so what I found is that a lot of the students that I was either counseling or, working with at the vice president level or the assistant dean level, a lot of the students that were acting out in college were acting out because of some of the things that happened to them when they were in elementary school.
Correct.
And never received any type of counseling and or help. And the other thing is that they didn't disclose it. So they didn't share it with anybody. So they have all of this, oh, my God.
Correct. I know exactly what you're talking about because I have a personal experience based on what I believe is the exact what you just described, that the person never dealt with something that happened as a child.
Right. And so what ends up happening is that it's going to come out one way or another.
Correct.
And so it's going to come out in your behavior. It's going to come out in your behavior with other people and or your behavior towards yourself. So you have students that are trying to hurt themselves because they're dealing with these memories and all these feelings and things that they've, never had the opportunity to disclose and to go to counseling and to help them navigate and give them some tools to be able to be a good citizen, if you will. And so what I have found is that God has blessed me and has given me the discernment because I've been working with, when I tell you, these little beautiful little people who drive me a little bonkers, but at the same time, God has allowed me to be the one to notice when a child is being abused. God has given me the discernment and to be the helper, the advocate for these students, and so to report the parents, to report things that are happening to these babies. And when I tell you, God is it's just amazing how God is using me in that vein. And so I am teaching K through second grade special education students. I have 12, just got another student the other day. So now I have 12 babies who are on the spectrum, the autism spectrum, and these babies can learn. These babies want to learn. They have a heart for people, and they just learn a little differently, and that's all. And so I love on them. I give them love every day. And I was absent. I was absent yesterday, not yesterday, day before yesterday. When I tell you, when I walked back in the building, and he's like, Dr. Miller, where were you? Because these babies, I wasn't there. And I missed a day. Like last semester, I didn't miss one day of school. But I missed Thursday, and these babies were, having a fit because I wasn't there. And I'm like the mom to them.
Right.
I'm the mom to them at school, just like Mr. Clark was the father to
That's
me
right.
at school. And so, and as I said a little bit earlier, I could always hear Mr. Clark's voice in my ear, and him saying, Pinky, leave them boys alone, or Pinky, you can do it, and get your education, and you can do it. And prayerfully, what Mr. Clark did for me, I am able to do for these babies now. And so when there is some type of abuse or something going on, I'm able to connect with the counselor and or the principal, and we get that situation handled and give that student the tools that they need to be able to move forward and be a good citizen of this world. So yeah, it just things are just coming full circle. It mattered again that Mr. Clark lived. We have students who are in the class of 1986 that I know are probably listening or will listen. And class of 86 was amazing because, again, we are his first graduating class. We went through all of those transformations with him, and we thank God that he lived. We thank God that he came at that appointed time, because I have classmates who are lawyers, doctors, teachers, doing phenomenally well.
Right.
Doing it phenomenally well, and who also give back to Paterson, New Jersey. They're just doing it. And Mr. Clark taught us that we had to work together. We are a family, and you have to pick each other up. You can't just, go out there and be solo and do everything on your own. Just like he helped us, we have to help him. Help our brother.
Correct.
And just like the movie being named "Lean on Me" is apropos because we leaned on Mr. Clark.
Correct.
And now we are Mr. Clark. If you
Correct.
Will. That's what he told me when I was interviewing him. He said, Pinky, I'm passing the bullhorn over to y'all. the bullhorn is yours now.
Correct.
So now it's your turn to allow people to lean on you like you leaned on me. And I'm like, Mr. Clark, you're so right.
Right.
You're so right. And so we, as his graduating class, and not just his graduating class, but any student or teacher who was there during Mr. Clark's tenure, it's your responsibility to help others, to help and allow people to lean on you, and you help them. You share your expertise. You give them exposure like you're doing, Mark, and thank you for what you're doing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And even with your radio, you're able to reach the masses and
Correct.
share our history, which is amazing. And what's amazing to me is that the movie is now 35 years old. And when I tell you that when people, because I'm here in Georgia, and if I say, we're talking and having a conversation, and the way I introduce myself sometimes is, are you familiar with the movie Lean on Me? They go, yeah, oh yeah, that's my favorite movie. And they start singing the song, and I'm like, okay. I said, well, you're talking to one of the real students who attended the real Eastside High School with the real Mr. Clark. And when I tell you they lose their minds, oh my God, and then they start asking questions. And it's amazing because that movie and Mr. Clark made such a great impact, not only on just people, but especially education. Because just like you said, your students are saying, oh, you're just like Mr. Clark. You have a lot of teachers who try to do the persona of a Mr. Clark. Oh, you acting like Mr. Clark. Yes, to some extent.
That's right.
To some extent, because you have students who, they just really want to learn at the end of the day. And sometimes they don't know how to navigate through this thing called life.
Correct.
That's why you're here. That's why you're here, to help your fellow man and to allow them to lean on you. So, yeah.
When I was telling this story, because my grade level at my school is an all-boys school, it's a leadership school, and it's grades 3 to 8. So I have grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, only one class per grade level. My school is extremely small, it's concentrated. But I was sharing with the boys, they're like my 60 sons. I was sharing with them that this movie wasn't just here in the United States, it was worldwide, because I've traveled the world. And if I say Paterson, New Jersey, the first question I get is, did you go to Lean On Me High School? Like, yes, I did. I went to Lean On Me High School. But that is, you're right. That's the impact and the impression that the movie had. And just sitting here listening to you, I have a newfound or an enhanced appreciation for Joe Clark. Because again, I when he would go on one of these talk shows, whether it was Letterman or whatever, we would have to we would get pinky bags, I mean huge bags of mail. And like I said, we would separate, the bags were separated out between, like you said, Clark Camp and not Clark Camp, love letters and hate letters. I mean, we would take bags of mail into the main office every time he would appear on one of those shows. He'd be interviewed. And it was a time to be there to experience, because he was an experience, no question about that. I've shared the story over and over with people in my first experience with him, and the first experience I had with him was not the best per se. Because he was new to the school. My sister actually was his first graduate. She was a senior when he came in there. She was class of 83. But when he came in, he met with all the groups, and he says, okay, if you're late after the 5th time, you're docked. And so he went around, he gets to the custodial group, and he says that to us. And at that time, I was doing my undergrad work. And after he finished, I raised my hand, and I said, Mr. Clark, I said, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with it. I understand. However, my last class gets out at 3 o'clock. I said, I don't get here until 3:30. He looks at me and he says, Mr. Medley, after the 5th time, you'll be docked. And so now I look back at him and I said, Mr. Clark, if I got a choice between my education and this job, you know which one is going to win. Mr. Medley, after the 5th time, you'll be docked. So at that point, the word had got around, and this was like in June time frame. The word had got around. So over the summer, teachers and everybody was streaming back and forth to his office, and they were saying, what is wrong with you? This is a black man trying to get his education and work, and you're going to dock his pay? So September came around. He comes up to me and said, Mr. Medley, you can come in at 4 o'clock. But that was our initial meeting. And after that, we got along well.
Right. And I think, and this is the thing, if you think about it this way, and even with you telling that story, with you putting your hand up in front of everyone, Sir, you're going to be docked. But think about that. Because guess what? If he did, think about it this way: as an administrator, and you have your staff,
Right.
and now you have a concern. You have a situation. So if you have a situation, and he says in front of you, okay, in front of the staff, okay, Mr. Medley, you can come in at 4:00. What do you think that's?
That is correct. That is correct.
Yeah, and so the thing of it is with Mr. Clark, if you go to him specifically, it's just a conversation between you and him, then of course, your education is important, and that's why that thing switched. But that had to be the way that it was.
You are absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct. You're absolutely right. From an adult perspective and an administrative perspective, you're spot on. Because I have to do the same thing in my role now. Like, well, like, if what I do for one, I got to do for all. You know what? If I do it for him or for her, I got to do it for you. So, yes, you're absolutely right. But that's my foray or my entrance or my meeting and introduction with Joe Clark. And like I said, and the two of us, I can't say fast friends, but we knew each other well enough that we talked.
Right.
And the things that you're describing, that's what I say, I'm a witness to, because I saw it, I heard it, I lived it. And I'm glad you were so honest with it, because a lot of people try to glamorize it. It's like, no, it was what it was, but I loved where he was trying to go.
Right.
And what he achieved in terms of the students that he impacted.
Right.
Because like I said, one of the boys said the scene that was the most powerful then was the scene on the roof of the school. I said, absolutely. I said, why? He said, because he told the young man, you're doing drugs, you're doing this, you're doing that. It's a slow death. So since you want to die, why don't you just go ahead and get it over with? And I said, think about that. Like, think about the impact of that you're killing yourself. So since that's what you want to do, why do it slow? Go ahead and get it done. I said, and I asked him, I said, well, did the young man jump off the roof? He said, no. I said, absolutely. But yeah, it is legendary for what it was, and still we're like we're doing right now. We're still celebrating, and this is 2024.
Exactly.
Many principals have come and gone at Eastside High School, but we still talk about this particular one for the impact that he had, for, like you said, the strategies that he used, good, bad, or indifferent. But to hear somebody like you from the student perspective say how it impacted my life.
Right. And so much so that Mr. Clark read my dissertation, which, I mean, was amazing for me. And he sent me a fruit basket, the edible fruit, after reading it. And then he called me and told me how proud he was of me. And, he sent me some articles of him and being on the cover of Time magazine and all of those things, and he was just amazing. And then, even after after receiving my PhD in 2011, and then reconnecting with him and his wife, Gloria, they were just phenomenal. And then the fact that he, lived in Florida.
Right.
I was, went to the house a couple times and met with him and met with his wife, and even during the celebration that we did back in right before COVID hit, we celebrated 30 years. So 5 years ago, we celebrated the 30th anniversary of the movie and had the fundraiser at Eastside High School, and we showed the movie and. Working with Mr. Page, who's no longer here.
Right.
Working with students. It was just amazing, to have the classmates come back and talk to the students the current students at Eastside High School, taking pictures. We had a luncheon. Miss Hazel Clark, Mr. Clark's daughter, spoke at the event. We had all kinds of other dignitaries that came. We had members from the movie come. It was just an amazing event and an amazing fundraiser, and the Paterson City Council supported it, and it was amazing.
Well, that's what
It's
they
a
had Thursday night on a scaled down version, but it was very similar because it was in the Fabian Theater. They had the red carpet, they had the banner up, the pictures they were taking. Some of the guys from Riff, they were there. So it was similar to that Thursday night, just a little bit more scaled down. But that's why you came to my mind. That's why I said I had an open slot this morning. Let me see if Pinky would come on so we can further the discussion. So let me see. We're at the end, and what I do at the end is I turn off the microphone and allow you to promote. The only thing you can't say is a dollar amount, but in terms of your website, the work you're doing, I'm looking at your books, Life After Lean on Me, the Dr. Pinky Miller story, Life After Lean on Me, dissertation research, From Leaning to Leaders, Life After Lean on Me, and then you have Life After Lean on Me, From Loving to Leaders. Oh, it's the same one, From Learning to Leaders. So, okay. Right. So at this point, you get to promote anything, or anybody you want to shout out, anything you want to say for the next couple of minutes, and then we'll be out for the morning. But I have truly enjoyed this. You brought back so many memories. I could as you were talking, I could see it going on in my head just like a movie. Mm-hmm. And you called it just as it was. You didn't sugarcoat it. You were very transparent with it, very vulnerable with it. And that's what I need, because I don't need the folks with the glamorization. I don't need the folks with the moviesation and the theaterization and all that, because we know you're an actress, so you know what they have to do to make the movie interesting. But for those of us who lived it and who was there, we saw all of the sides.
Right.
So I'm going to turn off the mic, and it's yours to promote and how folks can get in touch with you, your websites, and anything else you want to say, with the exception of a dollar amount.
Right. Well, thank you, Mark. I just want to say thank you for having me. Thank you for this opportunity to share my life story and my experiences with Mr. Clark. One of the things I wanted to say, though, is that when he passed away in 2020, it broke my heart. But I thank God that I was able to speak at his funeral and just, was allowed to share our life stories. And, again, it mattered that he lived. If you would like to get in contact with me, of course, you can go to drpinkymiller.com. As with my 3-book series, there's a couple of more books that are inside of me that are going to come out pretty soon. Or they can be purchased on Amazon. And I want to give a huge shout out to the class of 1986, which was his first graduating class. And what I mean by that is that when Mr. Clark came in as the brand new principal, we came in as scared little freshmen, and we were his first graduating class. So, yes, those other classes, I get it. Y'all are great, too. But his first graduating class was awesome. So I just want to say I thank God for this opportunity. Thank God for Mr. Clark's daughters, who are still, paving the way to make sure that Mr. Clark is never forgotten and that his legacy will live on. And that's what I told him, that his legacy will continue to live on as long as I'm alive and I'm still here. I'm always singing the praises of Mr. Clark. Again, the good, bad, and indifferent. And I love Mr. Clark. I love my hometown, Paterson, New Jersey. It's oh my God, they're doing some wonderful things in Paterson. And so thank you, Karen White and Jermaine Hopkins, who were Kanisha and Sam, the characters in the movie. You guys did a great, and excellent job of portraying the lives of the students at Eastside High School. Thank you, and thank you.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to make sure, because Joetta and I are connected on LinkedIn, and I'm going to make sure she get a copy of this interview. I'm going to make sure that I send it, I message it to her, and she can listen to it at her convenience. And now just talking to you this morning, I got a long day today, because when I leave here, I got a funeral, then I got class tonight myself this afternoon. But I'm going to watch, I wasn't able to go Thursday night because I had a prior appointment, but I'm going to go home. I'm going to watch Lean on Me again tonight. Just because me and you had this conversation this morning, I'm gonna pop me some popcorn and go to Netflix or Prime or whatever, and I'm going to watch Lean on Me for the umpteenth time. There's certain movies I've watched like over and over again. Lean on Me is one of them. So I'm going to watch it again tonight. That's going to be my relaxation after I get home after class. But Pinky, thank you so much. Or shall I say, Dr. Miller, thank you so much for rising early to join me this morning. And you will get a copy of the interview, and once you get it, you do whatever you want with it. You share it whichever way you want is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a wonderfully blessed day, and I'll be in touch with you.
All right. Sounds great.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.